Now, without further ado, I'd like to present our first speaker of the year, and that's Paul Newman of Hollywood fame. Paul was actually born in Dublin, and then grew up in Liverpool under the Beatles, and then flitted backwards and forwards between the United Kingdom and Australia a couple of times. And then when he got back here, he was an illustrator with the Fairfax and then News Limited groups. And you probably would have seen some of his work if you've been reading those papers. And he's now teaching illustration at TAFE. There's a bit of concern from my point of view because we were trying to line this all up for this year, and he did not know what his teaching job was going to be. And fortunately, thank goodness there's no conflict. Had to be flitting between the Randwick Library and TAFE, and that was not going to be possible. So, but he's here with us today. He has very good assistance here with his two children. And I'd really like to present Paul Newman, who will be talking about illustration and creativity.
Yeah, what Fred says is true. I've worked in illustration for something like 30 years now. And now I teach it, and I teach observational drawing and TAFE. So I brought some portfolios today, but I'm not sure how we're going to go at looking at them, so I guess you can come up and sort of have a look at them later. But I also realized I have a website, so we can look at some illustrations on this. But I did prepare a little talk, what is the difference between illustration and fine art, just to sort of give you an idea. It's hard to try to explain what an illustration is. A lot of you know because you're an artist, but a lot of people, they just think you're political cartoons or something. So we'll have a look at some of those later. So, and also, I'm having a book published, an e-book in April this year, my first novel. And so I'll give you some details of that later. So if any of you guys have book groups and you have iPads and so forth and you want to get this book, you can price of a cup of coffee, and if you want to come around and have a chat. What is the difference between illustration and fine art? People sort of explain the difference over many years, and there are many theories on the subject, such as art is the idea brought to life. You know that if you're artists, yes? While an illustration is a depiction or explanation of an idea. Fine art is simply art for art's sake, but illustration is illustrating a story or idea. And the last one I love, in modern illustration, the intent is most often the selling of a product. When something noble is put to ignoble ends, there is a deterioration of value. So that's how they think of illustrators as compared to quote-unquote fine artists. Okay? I'm going to be quoting a guy called David Apatow largely today, so you can't attribute this to me. He's a smarter guy than me. The quote I like is, in my view, there is no inherent difference between art and illustration, except the way in which payment to the artist is processed. And I'll explain what he meant by that statement. So, for the first 30,000 years of art, artists made a decent living working for kings, pharaohs, and popes. Art was commissioned for temple walls, royal palaces, and the homes of aristocrats. And then kings began to disappear, popes stopped commissioning, and these were replaced by a new commercial class fueled by the birth of capitalism and the invention of the corporation. So art went from being solely owned by the very rich, the kings and so forth, to this new commercial class. And this class became the new patrons of arts. And artists adapting to the new business realities found two paths. So the first was to produce what we now call fine or gallery art for the private money class and corporate art collections. The second path opened as a result of the newly invented printing press. So rather than selling a picture to a wealthy patron, artists could now make multiple copies of a picture and sell them for smaller amounts of money to larger numbers of less wealthy purchasers. So if this option had existed during the golden age of Greece or early Italian Renaissance, you can bet some of the greatest artists would have taken full advantage of it. In fact, when this business model first began to emerge with the invention of etching, some of the greatest artists such as Dürer and Rembrandt quickly embraced it. Rembrandt turned to etchings as a way of selling multiple copies of a single image to Dutch merchants. So around the time of the Dutch East Indies Company, the first major, massive corporations. Dutch merchants were able to buy an engraving, a reproduction by Dürer. Now this has never happened before. We're used to this now. We're used to so many other things as well, internet things, quite new. But this had never been done before. So in your own home, you could have what's essentially an artwork by Dürer. As I say, this is the birth of illustration now. So we've gone from fine art, which was commissioned to be hung in royal palaces and so forth, to something which was, universally, or pretty much universally available. The invention of printing was essential for the growth of illustration. There would be no modern illustration without two key developments. One is the ability to create and distribute quality copies to large audiences. And two, the ability to collect small, proportional payments for that art from large audiences. So you get paid a smaller amount of money, but from a lot more people. So you see what I'm saying? It makes sense. It's like you find out now we have illustration. You're making money from the sheer volume of the work that you're selling. And it's only possible because of the invention of printing. Now because of these developments, the most talented artists who we could never afford to hire individually under the old business model for art, like we could afford them, but they could now create beautiful pictures to entertain and delight the public. And they were rewarded with a tiny fraction of the price that was paid for a magazine or book. So we're talking now when this sort of golden age of illustration, children's book illustration, Arthur Rackham's here and so forth. Anybody know Arthur Rackham? Yeah? Gustave Doré, people like that, these great illustrators. So suddenly everybody could see this work. It wasn't hanging on a wall in somebody's house. Okay, so they were rewarded with a tiny fraction of the price that was paid for a magazine or a book. And so by aggregating tiny payments from vast audiences, we paid handsome sums to great magazine illustrators such as Norman Rockwell and Maxfield Parrish. So we'd all know those guys, yeah, but Rockwell definitely. And just as we pay handsome sums to the talented creators of Pixar today. Now Michelangelo never had the option of getting paid that way. So for a snapshot of how this new opportunity opened up for artists, we're going to look at the pirate illustrations of Howard Pyle. Howard Pyle is the father of modern illustration. As the technology for reproducing his pictures gradually improved over the course of his career, he had quite a long career, and the technology changed and improved. So as the technology for reproducing his pictures gradually improved over his career, the public became more enthusiastic and the demand increased dramatically. And as I say here, the earliest pictures were printed in magazines only after wood engravers carved Pyle's image into wooden painting blocks. Howard Pyle draws an illustration. It's then sent to this artisan, an engraver, so he gets a wood block, and he reproduces it. So Howard Pyle signs it here, and the engraver's work is done here, and he signs it. So these are the first, this is the first reproductions for magazines and books. And this was quite a shock to people. So, and as I say, you can see this is very labour intensive. You've got the illustrator does the job, and then we have the engraver doing a great job as an artisan to do this, and rightly he should sign it. And then they added crude colour to enhance the early images. But that would have been something brand new as well. People would just not have expected that. And if you can imagine seeing this for the first time, yeah.
What year was this period?
1890s, something around there, yeah. I should have checked that one out. I got to be on the board with you guys, haven't I? So they would add the crude colour to this, and as I say, this has not been seen before, but it's a beautiful looking thing, and it's no longer, this is now pure illustration. It's no longer what we call fine art. It was the invention of photo engraving captured the subtler and more sensitive aspects of Pyle's originals. So now, instead of an engraver actually cutting this out and cross-hatching it, this is done on a photographic plate. So around the birth of photogravure. So this would be exposed and then etched onto a plate with acid, and you're going to get these much more subtle tones. This is more like the original drawing. And this would be, this is the next progression in this. And this sort of heralds in this new era of the golden age. And Howard Pyle, as I say, you can see the progression of his work from the wood engraving. Improved printing technology finally reproduced the full colours and technique of the original. So this is just as he would have painted. And this leads to the golden age of illustration and a proliferation of illustrated books and magazines. So as we think on these images, we see how the quality of reproduction and these newly sophisticated ways of delivering to the public transformed the economics of art and inspired new bursts of creativity. In short, the twin pillars of modern illustration are one, quality reproduction, such as this, and two, the ability to collect marginal payments from a large number of consumers. These two developments created a robust opportunity for talented artists. They are the core of the economic model for illustration, and the only categorical difference between modern illustration and fine art, as I see it. So that's that particular little talk, and I was going to go on to show the portfolios, but I don't think that's really practical at this stage, so we might go into the website, shall we? So I should show you some of the work that I have been doing over the years now, and if you have any questions. So this is work I've been doing, as I say, over some 30 years. I've worked for the Sydney Morning Herald, the Daily Telegraph, the Australian, they're all the ones masquerade the newsletter papers, the Telegraph, the Australian, the Australian, the Sunday Telegraph. I went back to work in the Irish Independent for a while. I've worked in advertising, and so on and so forth. So it's just, we show you some examples of illustration. This was done around the time of the Olympics. And I like to work in a more realistic style, as you can see. So this was just some little fill-in from the Oz mag or some such thing. This is painted with gouache. We know what the qualities of gouache are. Watercolors, yeah, but they have a bit more bite to them. Watercolors, if you don't get it right first time, you're in trouble. I'm not smart enough for watercolors, because then you put the next colour and you take off the first one. Because I worked with guys who worked in acrylics, and they work fast. You have to be confident with that. And I just got used to work with water. I sort of stuck with what was working. It wasn't broke, so I didn't fix it up. I did drift off into other things like scraper board, so I wouldn't want to mix it up a little bit. This was done on watercolor paper. So, any questions about that? Yeah, I like to work up a bit of detail. And another thing, I also work what we call same size. A lot of illustrators, they work larger than sometimes 200%. So I always work the same size because I don't like to see my work reduced. I put a lot of detail in it, and if it gets reduced down, heads look like walnuts. It's horrible. But I've seen my work this size blown up in the paper because they reuse illustrations all the time. They make proper section and all that. When my work is blown up, it looks like a beautiful little sort of pastel job that somebody has done. So it blows up okay, but it doesn't reduce. Happy jolly chap, catching money in his upturned umbrella. That would be something for the financial pages. Oh, that's just, I used to call this cartoon head geezer. He's no one, but my friend Tom used to sit next to me in a newsletter. He said, "You're doing cartoon head geezer again." I got to get some new cliches. But I used to, and the thing is, when you're working as a newspaper illustrator, you do grab visual cliches. You've got it because you'll be given a job and they'll come out of the editorial meeting at 3 o'clock, 3:30. They've got the long ones and they're probably a great idea. And then they come to you and they give you 2,000 words of copy. This shape to fill. Okay? And you've got to come up with thumbnail sketches of ideas, take them back to the editor, the sub-editor, and then they've got to go, okay, do that. And if they want a crowd scene, you just got to say no. Because deadline will be 6:30. So you've got about 3 hours to come up with the idea and draw. So you have to beat the thing first. So this would be something about, obviously money and superfluous substance. It really looks very happy, doesn't it? So, Keith Richards, I did these apropos of nothing, I think, just to keep me handy. And I like to just do, and I like the way Keith's head's been changed over years. You can do another one now because he looks even more. It's unbelievable. It's like he's done it. But I love the man. I love his worldview. Great musician, best written guitarist on the planet. And I love the Stones. But it's just nice to see that he's still alive. As Keith says when he comes on stage, it's nice to be here. He says it's nice to be anywhere. But that's just Keith. That's just gouache on watercolor paper. Any questions?
Is that taken from photographs?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I work with photographic reference. With that, good question. What I do is I'll get photographic reference, and I cheat with things like that. I don't cheat, I cut corners. I put them on a light box, and I work with fairly light paper. That paper is very light. It's 185 GSM, 185 grams per square meter, and it has show through. So when you put that on a light box, we know what a light box is?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You put that on a light box and it shows through, and I just paint straight on top of it. And I used to like using big brushes that go to a fine point. You see some guys with a brush, you look like a kid. Because you get paint on it by the time you get it, it's dry. And the paper has to have a bit of tooth, as you call it. So it has to have a bit of grip, so some sort of soft pressed paper which will draw the paint from the brush. And you get a big paintbrush because it's absolute baby hair. So that's not a problem. No questions?
How long would it take you to do?
That would take me, don't lie, Paul, that would take me about, I think I had to break it up because that was just for me, but that would take, if I sat down to that, it would take about 8 hours, maybe 10 hours, straight off. Well, you have very good photo reference to work with, so, you know, just plow straight up.
If you were to publish that, would there be questions about the legality in terms of the photograph being somebody else's originally, or is that considered your original?
No, that's fine. There's no copyright in the face. And once I've painted it, the Stones are going to be in town, and my brother-in-law was working at the Four Seasons, and I said, if I do this and Mick Jagger, can you get the voices out? And they just you're not allowed. The Stones are really nice guys. My brother-in-law tells me he's at the Seagull, not the Seagull, was it Four Seasons? And the Stones are up, and they line up all the staff. And they're told beforehand, you are not to annoy the Stones. Just don't talk to them, but don't annoy them. Don't ask them for autographs. But what they do is they line up the staff, and the boys get out of limos and come through, and they say hello to everyone. But not like, you know, Prince Regent, oh, how's it going, you know? And when they leave, everyone gets a $100 tip. And they're just really, apparently they're really nice guys.
Is this your composition?
Yeah, all I did was I just wanted to get 3 different ages of Keith. And so I just got a bunch of photographs and photocopied them, moved them around, see which worked best. And then just did that. And I wanted to do, I think I've done a couple of others, like I did George Harrison and stuff like that. Sort of working on a kind of theme. I can't remember what was in the back of it, but when I had one of these done, and then you'll see later Mick Jagger, and like I say, that was specifically to try and get them signed.
Did you define lines? Is that a pen?
No, that's all paintbrush. That's all Winsor & Newton paintbrush, sable there. They're the best because New Zealand was paying for them, and prior to that, Sydney Arab was paying for them. Those brushes are about $180 a pop or something. But no, that's Winsor & Newton Series 3 sable brush, number 7, which, as I was saying earlier, that's a big brush, carries a fair bit of paint, but comes down to this really fine baby here, so you get a really fine.
Did you paint that on the light box?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, straight on. You switch the light box on, get an outline, switch it off, continue to paint.
You've got to be using hot press, otherwise you're not going to get fine work.
No, I don't like hot press. Hot press is too, it's like sort of this oily kind of stuff. That's great for nib work and so forth like that. I need cold press.
Okay.
Because it needs a bit of tooth, and it depends on the paper. Basically, there's a paper I love now, Canson.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful paper. It's great. Because we changed, or wait, they changed the paper stuff they were getting, and then they got arches for a long time. And I used to find with arches, with a brand new brush, it wouldn't release the paint off this arches paper. Now it's all, you know, supposedly quality paper, 185 GSM, 185 grams per square meter, but it wouldn't release the paint, and that's very frustrating when you've got the clock ticking to the deadline. You can't get the paint off. Then you've got to really start abusing the brush, and you don't want to do that. Canson watercolor paper is what I use now, and that's great. You just take it straight away, but it needs that really fine sort of hair on the top, just to begin to draw out that paint. A lot of guys use the hot press, but that would be, you know, for ink drawing and stuff like that. And I personally like the cold press.
That's just to get fine lines, that's all.
Yeah, oh no, Yeah, I think that really depends on the quality of paper. Cold press paper, provided it's not like El Cheapo, you still get the nice fine line. You'll see some here later if you can.
No, thank you.
Okay. Oh, there you go. I said there'd be one of Mick Jagger. Exactly the same kind of deal here. Just looking for, trying to keep this sort of similar to. But it's the same deal. Same paper, brushes, techniques. That was something to do with making. It's the dangling the carrot, the thing. It's trying to get education moving forward, getting the teacher. But I have a book called, I don't know if you guys know this, it's called the Fairburn System, F-A-I-R-B-U-R, Fairburn System. And they're great books. All it is people's heads. From young men and women to older men and women. And what they do is they get all different expressions. And each new page, big size book, big format. And each new page, it's just a series of photographs of the same head, and whatever expression they pull it. And then they film it from above, and they go 360, and then they film it, and then from below. So the whole thing. So his head was in there, and I thought, you gotta get this. Once again, a nice bit of reference. Whack it on a light box, and then draw in the character, the little and so forth. That was probably for the education section of the higher education section of the Australian. This one is actually in your bedroom, isn't it? Yeah. I did a couple of these. I was going to try and get a kid's book done. I love it, this little Matisse. Like, we all know Matisse, don't we? Ceci n'est pas une banane. This one I spent a bit more. Sorry.
Is it Matisse or Magritte?
Oh, sorry, Magritte, you're right, Magritte, yeah. I loved all that golden age of illustration, so the old book and the lead soles and the bag, so they're chewing them, and died of stomach, not sure why. But I had done all these sketches. It was like a 32-page double spread, so 16 illustrations, and I got that close to getting it published, but I ended up doing a couple of them as finished page illustrations so that the publisher could get a look at what the style was. I find that a bit stiff now. I'll do it differently next time, but I'll probably do it again at some stage, revisit it, but I'm not sure what that was for. But just, this whole idea of ideas, idea being able to lift you. And as I say, visual cliches, grab them when you can, grab them and run, because that's the deadline, paint it, do it, go on. No. Symbolic illustration, I used to do a fair bit of symbolic illustration. And I also used to try and get away with the minimal amount of work if possible. Once again, just that watercolor paper.
Did you use gold paint on that? Gold?
No, I didn't. It's looking a bit gold, isn't it?
Yeah.
It might just be the way it's come up. It's just, I have, what I always do for flash sales, I always underpaint with a bit of black winter gouache, and I mix it with some brilliant red. So jet black, brilliant red, just to take that edge off it. And I underpaint that if I'm painting straight off reference or a drawing on the light box. And then I just make up a sort of flesh tone with your red, yellow, blue. Mix it up and then put a wash of that over, which still have the show through underneath. And then add some more shadows, and then blend in, and then just put highlights on the end.
How do they bring this to print? Do they photograph it and then print it?
I used to go down to the guys in imaging, and they would scan it, these big fancy scanner, and then they would go onto the screen, and they would make any adjustments that they felt were necessary, and then they would run off copies, they're great big printers with newsprint paper. So you see exactly how it looked and reproduce the paper. And then they go out and they rip that up, and they go back in and have a look at a little linen cloth glass thing, and then they say it needs a bit more cyan, needs a bit more red or whatever, Then they would adjust that on the computer and then do that, and then the guy would rip it off. That's good. Then that would be sent off to Chamora, sent electronically.
Did you ever feel like you had to compromise for the printing process at all? Did you think, I have to do this very simply so it looks visually easier to see on the paper, or not too fiddly because people won't see it? Or...
Yeah, well, what I, as I say, with working the same size, that cut out a lot of that. With working that same size, that was never usually a problem for me. And I don't like busy illustrations anyway. I like to keep it as simple as I can. I knew a guy who would do a job for the sports section, for instance. And there was one guy, he did all this airbrush work, and he was a bit artistic. he'd stay till 6 in the morning, and then he'd miss the shift and everything, come in late in the afternoon, and he'd be like this, you know. But he overworked it, he just overcooked it. He'd have it and it looked great, but he couldn't stop. And you've got to learn to go, that's it, hands off, I'm done.
You have to know where to stop.
Yeah, but he did, and then you come in the next day, you'd be leaving saying, see Peter, that looks great, you know, 7 o'clock, bye, I'm going home, I'm going to the pub, or whatever I'm doing. And then you come in the next day, and this thing looked metallic. It didn't look human anymore. And these like sports guys, you know, throwing a ball, and you think that's going to be real quick and real simple, because the people who look at the paper don't really want art. They want to go, oh, I know who that is. They recognise it's great.
So it has to be kind of solid colour. I mean, you can't paint it in an illustrator in an impressionistic style.
Yeah, you
It
can.
might not translate onto the newspaper. Or...
No, if it looks okay on the paper, then it's your painting it. It'll be fine in the newspaper. There's always a bit of bleed with newsprint, so it may soften up on it a little bit. But generally speaking, if it looks okay on the paper as you painted it, it'll be fine.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you. Symbolic illustration once again. This one was obviously danger, giving it a heart attack, you know. This was not too bad actually. There was one sub-editor who was notorious, an awful man. He would give you a shape like this, yeah, or like this. I would say, oh, snakes are and what can you do with that? If you're given vaguely square or rectangular, and you do thumbnail sketches, you come up with lots of different ideas quickly. But when you've got that, what do you do? Snake. So this is not quite snake, but it's getting there. But once again, I like to just keep it simple. I just, you know, you want to just tell a story quickly. Does everyone sort of get what that is about? You just want to tell a story very quickly. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. You want to get the message across quickly. As I say, if I can stop you from turning the pages, you may read that, and you know, who knows. A balloon dog cocking his leg on some of okay? I'll tell you a story of this one. I took this down to an editor, a sub-editor at the Australian. Now, he's a sub-editor at the Australian, not a chick. I showed him this and he went, what's that? And I said, it's a balloon dog. He went, is that a breed of dog? How did you get here today? I have to admit here that this one, the piano keys, it's a beautiful idea, isn't it? It's not my idea. I was sitting there once again having a rap attack, and I had no idea what to do. My mate told me I had to rescue them. I've got black pencil and black keys on the piano. I looked at. So 4.5 hours of blind panic and adrenaline and, you know, rising fear, and then 25 minutes of illustration.
What's the significance of the broken one?
I have no idea. I just figured I tried to make them all look different. There's no real significance of that. Not very sharp, actually. It was something about the difficulty of writing. Writing music, I don't know, compositions, and I had that shape. And at that stage, that had left it so long, I knew I couldn't work on something, you know, really too much detail. And that's basically 2 colors, a little wash on top of that. So. And this lime, that's just brush rule with that fine brush we talked about before. So you just get, you know how you do brush rule, turn it around and then you just run a line across like that. So little tricks of the trade and get you. This man was asking before about copyright. Can we go to the next one, please, Tay? So, you know, he's about copyright, no copyright. How many times have you seen the Mona Lisa bastardized and self-fashion? I'm going to go, we have a bar at home, I have a bar at home, very long in. But, and I have this great postcard I got in Dublin, and it's the Mona Lisa with a pint of Guinness. And anyway, well, I've got a little Guinness. Bikies. There's something to do with bikey things, yeah, going to bikes and things. And so I just got this large gentleman and put him on the end of the shotgun. That one actually won an award. That one won a Stanley Award for illustration. That's the Australian Black and White Artists Club. They have awards every year, and they decide, you know, who's worthy and who's considered worthy that year. This is something to do with, you know, footballers being nutters and stuff. You know, they had all of those scandals where they were just every week they were wrecking hotels and attacking people and just going nuts. That, well, basically, it's sort of self-explanatory. You know, symbolic illustration, as I say, my job is only stop, you turn the page, and if you read that story, you might get the gist of it. So, and as I say, I just try to keep it fairly simple. I used a really old-fashioned football because one of those modern steam balls would really go with the old hand grenade thing, the Mills bomb. So they used to come to me for, I love this old style of pulp art.
Yeah.
And I found in fact years ago of doing this kind of thing, and they saw me do it, and it was any time they wanted to go to them. So I wanted to do lots of these kind of things. I really enjoyed this one. This is something about the, what's that? The big cat in the mountains, blacky thing or something.
Oh, yeah.
What is it?
Oh, yeah.
It's a panther.
Something like
Panther.
Lithgow Panther, is that the one?
Panther.
Lithgow Panther. And I had this story about the Lithgow Panthers, so they came to me and I went, will I do it? Of course I'll do it. This was in the Osmag. And sometimes you can be made to look pretty ordinary by what a designer does with your work, but this guy did a fantastic job. He took that illustration and he got some reference for a really old magazine, which is all ratty round gates and split and so forth, and he made this into a magazine cover, and he put a sort of a highlight down here, as if it were, as if you're looking at a dropped shadow, as if you were looking down at a really old magazine, it's a bit ratty. Some of the pages were shown, and really actually made that job look better than I had made it look. But I love all that kind of stuff, and I have reference books, you know, Chicks in Distress and all this kind of thing. I love dragging all that out of it. And it just made it a bit more fun. I did the lettering too. You remember all these old magazines with that? It was all 15 cents or so forth. And to me that was just a lot of fun. Once again, it's just the same paper.
Where do you get your reference books from?
You sort of pick them up over years, but we had, you know, stock photograph books, which most people use there. They look through and they order that and use it for book covers. And we used to get them loaded, copied. So I found that'd be an old black and white photograph, but the lighting was right for that. And I look, obviously you're gonna look for bits of reference. You can go online now and find all these old, you know, book covers and magazine covers and so forth. That was something about, I don't know, dementia or something. I'm suffering from that myself. So sort of the idea of being in prison, you know, your memories are all gone or some such thing, and this kind of tangled knot, which is vaguely referenced. Up yours, Buddha. The author recognised that controversy page. That's Salman Rushdie, obviously. And he's sitting there like, up yours, Buddha. I had to do one every month for the Australian Literary Review. They had and what it was they'd give you a list of birthdays or anniversaries when a novel was published, an author was born, so you had to come up with some. So I had to do a bunch of things like I heard Hemingway's The Old Man of the Sea, had a guy in a boat fishing and a Greenpeace thing looming over him, and that one, and Dracula getting into a sunbed. Wine, holy wines, mint wine. I don't know why I did that, but there you go. It does look a bit messianic.
Yeah.
I think I saw that thing, I thought, God, that could do with a halo. But it was in the paper, so I'm not sure what the story was. Something about it. I used to get wine illustrations, and they were another thing that, if you got that week in, week out, there's only so many times you can do grapes. Bottles and glasses, and more grapes, and more bottles, and you think, what am I going to do?
This is in an Irish pub after church on Sunday.
Yeah, that'd be a pint of Guinness. That'd be like a priest's collar pint of Guinness. I should make you think. I wasn't the Irishman sitting there looking at the priest's collar. That was something about, I don't know, something money. That's so long in the dim distant past. I can't really remember what it was about. But I just thought it was a nice image. That's sort of it's got a nice bit of movement to it. I quite like those colours actually. They work quite well. There you go. That's space, but someone's looking at you. Yeah. Next one, please, Sarah. Remember those old seaside postcards? Our home is girt by sea. So, they said, what can you do for the anthem, Paul? I mean, I think symbolic illustrations, something to do with sneaky business dealings, the shadows. Are we done, I think, Sarah? Yeah? Is that it? No, we're not done. Okay. You know that's classic, men at work? Well, he's not working. That's me. He's just said, I've had enough. And he's we were talking earlier about you saying, limited palette or something. This one is just 2 colors. I put down an ink. We all know what that means, don't we?
Yeah.
It's real straightforward, so you can just grab it, it's real straightforward. And it's a nice, easy one, you go home with. So I just used a waterproof ink for the silhouette. Then I put a wash of blue on there. I always put tape around the edges of the watercolor paper when it's finished, you can pull it off with a nice clean edge. And then I put a little wash of red or scarlet, just to give that effect. And that was something to do with all the films about September the 11th. I like that because it's real simple. That was only very small, but it actually blows up okay. It's come up okay. This is something to do with, when the first fleet sailed in. It was sort of like sunset for an Aboriginal way of life. Sort of thing. And you have to be real careful if you're going to use the Aboriginal flag, because a lot of people can be very upset if you see you misuse it or think you're misusing it. But they don't have any problems with this, because it's pretty straightforward. And, quite a strong image, I thought. Something about, I don't know, education, literature, or books, or some such thing. And yeah. Oh, we all know. I don't have to think about those. Honestly, I don't. This was when all the record companies were whinging and bitching about, we're getting downloading our music. And I thought, well, you know what? You can rip us off for this. So long now, label was paying so much for the product. And that was the gist of the story. That was the opinion piece, so I did that. This was something to do with how you can continue to make money from your profession even though you have retired. So this guy, he's hung up his wings, still making money. You can never know what's coming down the road. Or something like that, I think. And I think, is that it? Oh no, here you go. Glad you mind. Something to do with being an Australian expat in Asia or something, I think that was. So you just got to try and get a quick visual. Please take my last one. That's George Orwell. Eric Blair. He had that famous pencil moustache, so he made up the keys about it.
Thank you very much, Paul, for a very entertaining and very informative talk. This has been fantastic.
Thank you.